Alright, hello everyone. My name is Ansh and today I'll be talking about Flutter. So, my main aim of this presentation is to introduce all of you to the basics of Flutter. I'm not going to go deep inside how actually you'll be working with a Flutter application, how you'll be developing an application in Flutter. But I'll give you a general overview and compare it to the Android ecosystem since you are very well aware about that ecosystem. So, right, so here is the outline of the talk. At first, I'll start with why do we need another app development framework when we have Android and iOS frameworks already in the market for the past 10 years or so. Next, I'll talk about the general basics to give you an idea as to what Flutter is and how you can, if you decide to work on an application, then how to go about it. And then I'll be concluding with a project of mine that I have been working for the past month or so. All right. So, what's the purpose? Why did Google introduce Flutter in 2018, and why do we need another app development framework in the market? So, many of us have been working on this amazing app development framework for quite some time now, and then we hear out of the blue that there is this another app development framework in the market, and everyone is shifting towards it, and we assume that it is here to remove Android or iOS from the ecosystem and dominate the market. But let me assure you that that is not the case. That is not why Flutter is here. It is indeed here to create a larger group of community so that students and even professionals can enjoy the app development experience and play around with it. It is always better to have more options. So for me, F in Flutter stands for fun. It is really fun to start a project in Flutter, play with the animations, and build the application, start a new project, and stuff like that. So it is really fun. Believe me, when you start, you'll know what I'm talking about. So the basic things that you should know about before starting a project is you'll have to work around with Dart language. At first, it might seem a bit odd since we have been working with Java and now we are working with Kotlin, most of us. So at first, it might seem odd to work with a language like Dart, but eventually you get used to it. Next, you have to wrap your mind around the idea of widgets. Everything in Flutter is widget. Even your application that you are developing is a widget. Even the font that you are applying on the text view, the color that you are applying on the text view is a widget. So everything is widget in this particular ecosystem. Next, you'll see some amazingly fast lightning speed build times, and there is this concept of hot reload in Flutter, which works really amazingly fast, and you'll see the changes that you make in your code reflect on your UI in milliseconds. So you must have heard of instant run, but it actually works in case of Flutter. So you can build some really expressive UIs using the intrinsic animations that the Flutter ecosystem provides. You can get native performances in the release builds that you tend to upload on the App Store or the Play Store. And again, you can choose any IDE of your choice, be it Android Studio, IntelliJ, or VS Code. That is not an issue in case of this. So you must be thinking like, okay, all of this is fine, and all of that is not that impressive. And Dart, what's that? We have Kotlin. Kotlin is such an amazing language, and new features that were introduced recently are quite fascinating. And we have XML to design our layout. So why should I move on to declarative layout pattern, right? And most of all, we have been in business for the past 10 years. So Android has grown tremendously in the past 10 years. So is the case in case of iOS. But believe me, Flutter has grown immensely in the past year, and the community is growing day by day. You can see all of this on Medium, on Stack Overflow. The community is very helpful. So yeah, that is the case. All right. So in covering the general basics, what I'll do is, since all of us sitting here are Android developers, so we are very well aware about about the basics of Android development, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll compare all the basics of Android with Flutter so that you get an idea that it is not that different from the native development platform, and you can easily switch if you want to Flutter. Alright, so let's start with the way you declare and construct UI. So in case of Android, we have views, view groups, and stuff like that. You all know about views. In case of Flutter, we have widgets. Widgets are of two kinds: stateless. Here is an example of a stateless widget, a text widget, a very simple one. I like Flutter, and we have applied a font weight of bold. Next, we have stateful widgets. So what's the basic difference is, in case of stateless widget, users cannot interact with the widget. The widget properties will remain the same throughout the life cycle. You'll not be able to interact with it, you'll not be able to change the properties. But in case of stateful widgets, it's the opposite. The users can interact with the widget, you can change the color, you can change the states of a particular widget and stuff like that by clicking on it and detecting a gesture. So set state method is called from like if you click on a button and if you call the set state method and if you change the property of that widget, then you can easily change the changes can be reflected on the UI easily. Next, we have the way you navigate within your application. In case of Androids, we have intents, very easy. In case of Flutter, we have navigator. Navigator again is a widget which consists of routes. We specify all the routes in a map of routes actually. It is like this. So in this, as you can observe, we have a route name /A, which will redirect to page A. We have route B, we have route C. This is a string. This is not a pattern like we have to apply slash and then specify the route name. That is not the case. You can specify A, B, C, D as well. But this is how you Flutter recognizes that this route name is dedicated to what page. So let's keep that aside for a while, and we'll focus on the ways you can change pages in a Flutter application. So what you do is you basically push a page onto a navigator while switching from one page to another page. But there can be a requirement where you want your result from page B to be reflected on page A, right? On activity result, you must have used that multiple times in case of Android development. So that is similar to this. In this case, what I've done is I have a location screen. I have fetch location on that screen and I return back the coordinates from that screen. So that can be done in just two lines. And you can observe the coordinates in the page A. So this line of code will be on page A and this line of code will be on page B. So what navigator is basically a stack on which you can push the pages and you can pop the pages as you go back the hierarchy. So it is very simple to implement and understand as well. Okay, alright. So the way you perform background operations. In case of Android, we have async task, job scheduler, RX Java, and multiple other libraries for that matter. But these are all the famous options available. And in case of Flutter, it is actually a single threaded. You must have heard of Node.js, so it is something like that. It runs a single event loop. So how do you perform background task on such a framework which is single threaded? So there is a concept of async await in case of Flutter. Some of you might have worked with JavaScript, so you must be aware of this concept. That, it is the same as that concept, async and await. It is used to perform basic background operations, network fetching, or if you want to perform small computational tasks, you can do it with async and await. But if you want to perform some really complex mathematical operations and you don't want your user to wait for the results, you can perform that in isolate. So isolate is another widget in the ecosystem, which is used to process large amount of data in the background, and it takes advantage of multiple CPU cores available on the user device. And you cannot. The main disadvantage of it is you cannot access the variables on the main thread, and you cannot change the properties of widgets on the main thread. So isolate is a tad bit complex as compared to async await, but if you start using it and implementing it in an application, then you'll get used to it and start working with it. All right, let's move on to the way you manage resources in your application. So we very well know that there is this res folder in every Android project hierarchy, within which we maintain the resources that we are going to use in the application, right? In case of Flutter, there is no such folder for you to store all your assets in. So how do you manage our assets then? So we'll be talking about images in Spring. In case of images, what you can do is you can create a folder by the name of images. Why not? And what you have to do is you have to mention the location of image files in this particular file, pubspec.yam. It will be available by default in every Flutter project. We'll be talking about what this file is in future slides. So, as I said, you have to mention the path of that image in this file. So, you'll be mentioning that in this manner, and you can use that image anywhere inside your project very easily. In case of strings, there is no dedicated resource management system for strings as well. So, what you can do is the best practice that Flutter developers follow is they create a class of strings and then they provide static fields to use it inside your application anywhere, any which way you want. So that is how you manage assets inside Flutter application. So there are always some simple go-to layouts that we work with in Android, like linear layout, relative layout, and constraint layout, which we all learned about in the previous talk. In case of Flutter, we have rows, columns, stack, flex, and expanded, and they are in a way behavioral wise similar to linear, relative, and constraint. So you can play around with them and work around according to your needs. So here is a basic example of a row. You specify a row widget and specify the children of this particular row. It will arrange in a horizontal manner, and in case of column, it will arrange in a vertical manner. And this is the example of a row and column, a very basic example. All right. So in every Android application, large scale application, we see that there is a need to display a list of items, right? So in Android, we have our favorite recycler view to display a list of items. We all know how to use and implement recycler view in our projects. In case of Flutter, we have list view. So in case of recycler view, we have adapters. We bound a recycler view to a particular adapter. Then we inflate our items inside the on-bind view and change the properties whatever changes you want to make. So it's a long process. It's a lot of boilerplate code involved. But we have no other option, so we work with this. But in list view, in case of Flutter, it is as simple as specifying a widget by the name of list view and providing it with a list of widgets, and you're done with it. No adapter, no binding of data, nothing. You just have to specify a widget by the name of list view and you're done with it. So if you focus on these two, we have a recycler view, so to say, in Flutter. That is the only code that you need to implement. You must be wondering that how do you manage memories and will there be memory issues in case of infinite list view? But that is not the case because of the immutable widget properties of Flutter, and the Flutter system manages memory for you by default. So you don't, as a developer, you don't have to worry about that. Next, we have how do we handle touch events. So in Flutter, we have in Android, we have on-click listener. We use on-click listener for every button, text view, anything like that we want to listen clicks or touches on. But in case of Flutter, we have touch listeners to do that task for us. So many widgets are designed in a way to detect gestures by default, and they have this common method on pressed within them. And for those widgets which do not have this property on press, we have a gesture detector widget so that we can wrap those widgets around with this, and then we can detect the touch or any gesture for that matter. So here are the examples, very basic, it's simple one. Button obviously will be able to detect a touch or a gesture on itself, so it has on press method. Case of image, in case of an image, for example, it will not be able to detect touch, so it does not have on press. So what you do is you wrap it around with gesture detector, and then you can detect the touch via calling on tap method of it. So that was the touch listener parts in Flutter. Next, we have themes. How do you define themes and how does themes work in Flutter? So in Android, we have styles.xml. We specify all the themes in styles.xml in an Android project. But in case of Flutter, what we have is a themes widget again, which we have to specify it in top level widget of our application. So typically a top level widget will be a material widget, which you will be specifying if you are working for an Android app only. So you'll be there is this widget called Material App. It comes out of the box and it brings a lot of styling and theming by default. But you can specify your own by providing it with a theme data widget and providing primary search and text section color and stuff like that. Everything is available for you on the top level widget of it, and then the home screen that you want your app to have will be mentioned here. So this is the top level widget, and then the uh, app flow will continue from here. So themes are mentioned in the top level widget in case of Flutter. Alright, so we all need some kind of a local storage on our applications to manage states and everything. So in case of Android, we have shared preferences, room library to interact with SQLite databases. In case of Flutter, we have plugins for that. So we have shared preferences plugin, we have an SQLite plugin called SQFlight. They are very well tested, very well developed and maintained. You can use this to store your simple integer or string values, or you can use SQFlight to store complex data. So this is a basic example of a shared preferences plugin that you can integrate in your Flutter project. All right. So we have. So this is the main part of any application where you define the dependencies that you are going to use inside your application. So we all know in Android we have a build.gradle file where we define our dependencies. But in case of Flutter, we have the pubspec.yml file that was mentioned earlier. So what is this file actually? What does this file do? What all can we have in this file? So here you can see we have mentioned all the dependencies that you are planning to use inside your project, like SVG dependency, URL launcher dependency, HTTP for network calling, YouTube player, Cupertino icons if you're designing an app for iOS as well, and stuff like that. Then here, as you can see, you have to mention the assets that you are planning to use inside your application. So if you drag and drop an asset inside the images folder, and if you try to use it inside your application, it won't work. You have to mention it here so that Flutter knows that this is an asset that this developer is planning to use inside the application. And same goes with the fonts as well. You have to mention the fonts here along with the path where the file is inside the project. So that is about the build.gradle file in case of Flutter, which is pubspec.yml. So all of this must sound, you must be able to, after listening all of this, you must be feeling like, okay, I relate to what Flutter is actually all about, and it's not that much different than the Android project structure or hierarchy that we used to follow. I can work with Flutter, I can develop an app, I can start working on it, but the main issue that developers follow is the declarative layout pattern. You have to, there is no XML, you have to design all your layouts inside the code itself where the logic is. So that really bothered developers in the initial stage when Flutter was introduced. So you must be thinking like, why declarative layout? Why not have XML inside your application? Well, I've been working on XML for quite some time and I'm very much familiar with it. I like it as well. So why not that? So let's get an answer to this question from the two most prominent names in app development scene, that is Android and iOS. Yes, they are also planning on integrating this declarative layout platform in their ecosystem, with Android bringing Jetpack Compose and iOS bringing SwiftUI. SwiftUI is in production. People are using it to make small changes, but Jetpack Compose is still in pre-alpha stage. But yeah, they are planning to bring this declarative layout pattern in their ecosystem as well. So let's ask them for the advantages that they feel this declarative layout pattern brings to a developer. So according to their documentation, that your code will be concise, easy, the ease of use will increase, simple way to build UI, all code, one code for all devices, easy to read syntax, and the most important one, live changes. Life changes in the sense that as soon as you make your changes to the code, it is reflected in no time on your device that you are working your application on, building your application on. So yeah, if these ecosystems are also moving towards declarative layout, then there are some advantages because of which they are making this decision to do so. So I'll be concluding my talk with this project of mine that I have been working on quite some time now. Like a month back, I started on this. This is by the name of Flutter Widget Guide. It is for anyone who is is planning to start working on Flutter. So it is on GitHub. Any kind of contribution is welcome. And what you can do inside this is there is a list of all the common widgets. There are Medium articles on all some of the widgets as well. All the widgets are listed here. It is in sync with the Flutter widget of the week playlist on YouTube, the official YouTube playlist that the Flutter developers have made. And inside the app, you can explore a widget, watch a widget video, and explore the code as well for that widget inside the application. So it is available for free on Play Store. You can go if you want to. You can have a look at it, and if you want to contribute to the project, then you're all welcome to do so as well. So here is me exploring a widget inside the application. You can have a look at the code as well. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. If there are any questions, then now is the time.
Yeah. I have a few questions, not one question.
Okay.
So I just want to know how Dart internally interact with native API and how it gets shipped with native code, likewise React Native shipped like JS bundle.
Okay. So
and whether it's a interpreted language or compiled language Dart.
Okay, so in case of Dart, what happens is behind the scenes, since you have mentioned that you are going to use a material app, like right in your project hierarchy, so that material app is used to declare that you are building an application for Android. In similar sense, there is Cupertino app as well for iOS development platform. You can have both in your application depending on which platform your code is running on. So behind the scenes, Flutter team has managed to convert all that logic base to interact with the native APIs. So it is all going on behind the scenes. You don't have to worry about if it will work or not, if my click or gestures will be detected or not, if it will be jittery or will it crash unexpectedly. That is not the case. It all turns out to be very well, baked according to the platform that you're working on. Any more questions, or do you want to ask? Okay. Okay. So you are correct about that. Actually, so it is a problem that Flutter developers are tackling right now. So in case of debug mode, the behavior and the performance of the application will be a bit jittery and laggy. But in case of release builds, it will be a much more smoother experience. In case of performance, if you may ask, it is the Flutter developers are working on it, and it is in their pipeline to match that native performance. But that is not the case right now. It has been an year only since Flutter came out. But in due time and in future, it will be. I'm sure of it that it will be able to match or maybe surpass the native performance as well.
So I heard this thing that Flutter APK size is very large. Like even a Hello World application will have a very big size.
Okay. So there is this stigma going around in community that Flutter application sizes are very large, the APK size is very large. That is true in case of debug version, but in case of release version, you can like in case of my project. Let me talk about that. In case of Flutter Widget Guide, what happened was in case of debug version, it was 45 MB file. So I was a bit skeptical, like it's such a basic application, and I have not included so many assets in the application. So how will I plan to upload it on App Store, Play Store? But in case of my release build, I build an Android app bundle, and the APK size reduced down to 8.7 MB. So from 45 from 45 MB in debug version to 8.8 MB in release version, I think it's a significant difference, and it won't matter if you're working on a large application. It will definitely shrink it down in the release build. Yeah. Okay, so Flutter very intelligently understands what the program rules you have mentioned, the program files, and it interacts with that. So in case of program and streaming the application, first I'll ask you to build your application in Android app bundle format, not in the AVK format. It was actually recently introduced a month back only. And in case of Progart file, you don't have to create another file. It's the same file that will be used to shrink the project resources, and all the rules mentioned in the Progart file will be followed accordingly. So you can go up on flutter.dev, and there is this series of tutorials and explanation as to how the interaction works. Any more doubts? No? Thank you so much for listening.
Can you please let me know how can we localize the strings?
Okay, so there is again there is a package available for it, international INTL package that you can install in your project and start working with the like languages and everything stuff like that. So it is available. All the packages that you can think of are available on pub.dev for you to use for free.
One more question I have. So, like small apps are okay, side projects are okay, but would you recommend Flutter for building any serious app? Like, for example, we saw the Tokopedia app.
Right.
Millions of people are using already. So, would you recommend going for Flutter for a serious app like that?
Yeah, so one of the major investors in Tokopedia is Alibaba, as we all know. So Alibaba itself is working on has a Flutter application on production, and it is working very well for them. They have 10 million plus users on that application, and it's working really fine. Google AdMob application that is available on the Play Store is built in Flutter. Bounce, there is a startup called Bounce in Bangalore. It has 1 million plus user base. It is planning on shifting from native code to Flutter code in in coming months. So yeah, you can build a large scale application in Flutter without any you know a doubt or something in your mind that it might work or it may not work.
New APIs which are coming in the platform, that would be delayed.
Sorry.
New APIs which are, let's say, Android Q is being shipped,
Hmm.
is ready to be out. So
Right.
there would be a delay for the counterpart in Flutter, right?
Right. So if you build a Flutter application in Android Q beta stage right now, it will crash. So so there are issues, there are problems. I'm not saying it's 100% ready for you to deliver, but it catches up with the native platform as bit in due time. So it is not that behind right now. Any other question that you want to ask? Okay, why should you shift to Flutter application development? First of all, it's fun to work in Flutter. All right, so you won't be bored out of anything that you're working on Flutter. I personally experienced that in my case. Be it it is a side project, but still I enjoy it very much. Second will be that it targets both the platforms. So single code for both the platforms, so you can really shrink down the size of your team, save on resources and budget and stuff like that. That can be the second reason for you to shift. And third reason is that there is this OS and works behind the scenes. I'm not sure if it's called Fuchsia, something like that. Fuchsia, right? So that operating system will be completely on top, and Flutter will be the app development platform that developers will be using to build apps for that OS. So that OS is will be like it's a project that is going on in Google, and it is pre-alpha stage right now. There is no project going on that you can have a look at on YouTube or some, or there is no Medium article for you to explore that project. But yeah, there is something going on behind the scenes, and I'm sure that it will be big. Anything else? Third part, the libraries. So let's take an example of Firebase. So we have Firebase plugins available for Flutter for everything: Firebase storage, AdMob, Firebase AdMob, Firebase like analytics. So we have plugins for that matter.
So we have to rely upon plugin team for getting that integration.
Right. So the plugin teams the teams that are working on those plugins are from the original Flutter team that worked on Flutter platform. So I'm sure you can be comfortable with using those plugins. And there is a rating of every plugin on pub.dev that you can have a look at and decide on your own that if you want to go with this plugin or not.
So cannot we interact directly with native APIs of Android or iOS?
You can, but it is a bit buggy right now. So it is very highly recommended to use plugins, and there are plugins for everything. So you won't feel any necessity for to integrate native libraries into your project. Anything else? Alright, so that's it from my side. Thank you all for listening and interacting with me.